My name is Anthony Copeland, and this is my speech for Comm 101. Famine, hostility, spying, espionage, and poverty. These are all negative consequences of the Cold War brought from the impacts of the Marshall Plan. Today, I am going to talk to you about the Marshall Plan and the ways it affected the Cold War. I think it's important to look back at events like these and see how the decisions and consequences from these times impacted events later on. It's important to know how connected everything is, especially as we make decisions today as a whole. I have been very passionate about history since I was in 7th grade. And regarding the Marshall Plan and the Cold War, I'm very self-educated. Beyond my prior knowledge, I have also read academic articles, historical accounts, and books related to this topic. 1. The Marshall Plan. 2. Europe's response. 3. The Cold War. 1. The Marshall Plan. Following World War I and going into World War II, the European economy was in shambles. This is particularly due to United States intervention, as the United States loaned weapons to the Allies, and then following the war, Germany was forced to pay reparations to the Allies. Seeing this, the United States offered loans to Germany to help pay their reparations, and then the Allies then used that reparation money to pay off their own loans to the United States. This resulted in a lot of money leaving Europe and going into the United States, which also set the stage for the Great Depression to take place. Seeing the state of the world, Secretary of State George Marshall proposed the Marshall Plan. The plan was to send $13 billion to Europe to promote economic growth, infrastructure, and industry. Dr. Wheeler said in her Cold War Studies journal, "The Marshall Plan highlighted the grim conditions in Europe and offered U.S. economical assistance to speed the continent's recovery." But to see how the Marshall Plan really affected the Cold War, it's important to see how Europe reacted to it. 1. The Marshall Plan. 2. Europe's response. Many in Europe saw the plan as this beacon of hope, something that would bring life back to normal. And while many felt this way, many did not as well. Specifically in Eastern Europe and communist nations, these communist nations rejected the Marshall Plan. Many felt that it was just a way for the United States to spread capitalism throughout the continent, which was a direct conflict with communism. Lawmaker Adolf Berle says in his journal, "The Marshall Plan and the European Struggle." The Marshall Plan, probably without direct intentions, has fostered the nucleus of a changed European economy. It's important to see these divided in ideologies and people throughout the nations. Specifically, most notably, in Berlin. The Berlin Wall was a wall separating East and West Berlin, separating the democratic and communist sides of the nation, greatly furthering the divide within the continent and the rest of the world. 2. Europe's response. 3. The Cold War. The Cold War was a time for the United States and the USSR to show the world which side was better, capitalism or communism, and it can be seen through many different outcomes. Historian Jeffrey Roberts says in his Business Source premiere that Moscow's decision to reject the Marshall Plan in Soviet and Eastern European participation is seen by many historians as a key moment in the origins and development of the Cold War. Tensions only raised higher from this point on. While many saw the Marshall Plan as a way to set up satellite states in Europe, both sides began looking elsewhere as well, most notably in Korea and Vietnam. Another incident as well, besides these proxy wars, happened. In 1960, a U-2 spy plane was shot down over Ukraine in USSR territory. This incident showed the world that the United States had been spying on the USSR and that there was obvious cause and reasonings for these tensions. This raised the fear of war in the world greatly, especially after coming out of the world wars. Tensions also raised higher from this point on. However, it's important to understand the initial outcomes of this Cold War came from the Marshall Plan. Today, I talk to you about the Marshall Plan, Europe's response, and the Cold War. Aid, prosperity, growth, industrialization, and recovery. These were things that the Marshall Plan brought to much of Europe. However, it is important to consider the fact that the Marshall Plan was also a double-edged sword. And while the Marshall Plan may have helped many people, it also hurt many people as well. Thank you.